Tales from the streets.
All right, so welcome back to another Street Tales episode. And we have the honor of having someone that we have had on our show before. She talked to us about what she was doing at the time, but we wanted to bring her back because she has such a wealth of knowledge and information and background when it comes to the law enforcement world. And we really wanted to pick her brain about some other things. So we have Meg Ross back with us today. Thank you for joining us again, Meg.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you. So when we originally brought Meg on, it was because we were talking, it was during our mental health mini series that we did. And she came on to talk to us about the Hope Line, which she is an ambassador for, which is a crisis line that is dedicated to first responders, firefighters, dispatchers, law enforcement officers, all the individuals that are those frontline first responders that a lot of times will not go get help because they don't want to be kind of lumped in with the masses. So Meg came on, was gracious to come and talk about the Hope Line, talked a lot about mental health and law enforcement and first responder world and how we're trying to be better with that. And she came back because when we had her on, she talked to us a lot about just her background in law enforcement and all the things that she had done. And we were mouths hanging open. So we wanted to bring her back so she could kind of elaborate on that a little bit. Before we jump into that, Meg, is there any updates when it comes to the Hope Line as to what's going on?
I think when I got on, it was statewide, so we are statewide. So anyone in Florida that's associated with a first responder agency can use that line and be connected with someone who can put them in touch with the resources they need. That's really it. I am the ambassador for the state, though. That maybe changed. We lost some funding, so I'm covering the state now. So this is
Oh,
a great
wow.
opportunity to help spread this message.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Excellent. I love it. And I will say that I still sit on the board with Meg, and she's doing a phenomenal job to try to push it out and get the information out and make sure that she is making the individuals that need these services aware of what's available to them. So I thank you for that because I think it's a huge endeavor.
Thank you.
So let's back up and talk about what I know you touched on a little bit, but what led you into law enforcement?
Yeah, so I think I said before I didn't grow up in a family where law enforcement really seemed like an option. The I'm the sixth of seven kids, four older brothers. My mom stayed home, so we were, my idea of my future was maybe a housewife raising children, maybe working, but probably secretarial. That kind of, that really.
hmm
I hate to say it, 50s kind of outlook, but it was, I was growing up in the 70s, but that was where I came from. But as I got out of high school, I was working at a bank and working my way through college. I saw an opportunity. I think I knew somebody who worked at the police department there in Eugene, Oregon, and it was a little more money, so more money, maybe a little more towards my tuition. I took a job with the Eugene Police Department as a records clerk.
Okay.
From there, I worked there for a while, plugging away on my education very slowly. I probably didn't take classes more than I did, but I got to the age where I decided I could move away from Oregon because I didn't like it. Moved to Florida, got a job at Largo Police Department again because that translates so well if you've already worked at a police department. Doing the
hmm
same thing, records. And I did that for 3 years. And I ran into a wall with my trying to get my education and support myself and, drive a car that worked and all the things. They were giving me very little money towards my education.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I had advanced a little bit, but I was running into a wall there at Largo Police. They required a bachelor's degree to be a police officer. I was trying, but I wasn't there.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine, the spouse of one of the detectives I worked with at Largo, told me, well, why don't you come to USF? We give you tuition waivers up to 6 hours a semester, and we'll put you through the academy. So my motivating factor was really education.
hmm
I don't know that I even knew what I was jumping into, and I certainly got pretty quick exposure to, running in the morning and defensive tactics and standing on the line at attention for inspection, all that stuff that I don't think I really even considered when I just made that decision to give it a try.
So, how old were you when you transitioned from record to law enforcement?
24.
24. All right. And then what year was this roughly?
1988.
1988. All right. Let me ask you just to get into the records part, because I think it's overlooked and I don't want to dive too down deep. What was it like records back then? Because I'm envisioning like index cards, a lot of paper, filing cabinets, and I don't think people understand the vast change that occurred when everything went digital.
Absolutely. Well, I was midnight shift records clerk, which
Oof.
means I was working 11 to 7. I worked at the front desk, so anybody coming into the police department would come into the front desk there, and I would get them, dispatch or a police officer or whatever. In Eugene, we had a municipal court, so they'd come in and pay fines and things. But yes, paper. We had a rolling file, a electric filing cabinet that you would hit a button and it would move the files so that you could get to it. And all those reports that were written, we would then in turn go and type all the information. Now, not the narratives, but all the information that, the name, date, all that stuff. So, when they talk about garbage in, garbage out, well, I'm reading the handwriting of the officers and I'm trying to make, verify. And, I guess maybe they connected probably driver's license records or whatever so that you could verify in some way. But yeah, the writing, same with tickets, and I know my writing now probably was way better back then, but after all those years of writing police reports, I don't write if I can avoid it now. So
you said that and I was like, oh my God, what was it like back? Because I came in, when everything was digital, I could like swipe the driver's license, populate, like all that stuff was amazing. But then I went and worked for Maine State Police where we had a laptop, but all our reports and tickets and stuff, like you had to write it like really hard because it was like that 5 piece. I'm like, guys,
press hard.
There's advancements in this. Why do we have to do this? It doesn't need to be this hard.
Well,
he had no idea what that meant. The press hard 5 copies until he went to Maine.
Yeah, where you're writing like this now because you got to get through all the copies.
Right. Well, it's funny because really my whole career was when we had to handwrite things. So my first 15 years were in patrol, and we really transitioned to this digital after I left driving a patrol car as an officer. So when I made patrol lieutenant and I'm out there running traffic, I had to... quite off. I mean, I tried to learn, but I didn't do it enough. I needed help to write a ticket because it was automated, and I guess if you did it, it was probably a lot easier. But it wasn't easy for someone who didn't ever do it.
Yeah, a lot of supervisors, when the transition happened, used to be like, "Let me get that unit to come by here and real quick," and it was just to write the ticket.
Yeah.
I could say that the digital world, you could just add ticket if you needed to. Whereas if you're writing, be like, I'm done. He's getting one.
One ticket. That's it. That's as mad as I could get.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. No, you're right. One of those big changes.
That's crazy. So I have a question that kind of goes back to people would handwrite the reports. What was the purpose behind you then typing?
So we did have a database. So back at 80, let me see, 81, I moved here in 85. So 84 and 85 anyways, when I was at Eugene Police Department, they had a countywide system. So really when I moved to Florida, I was surprised at this because in Lane County, Oregon, where I was living, I would enter in the information about, and by the way, field contact cards, FIRs, whatever they were called there, and traffic tickets would all be entered in so that anyone in the county could see where they'd been contacted or stopped or whatever. Now, we didn't have that when I moved to Florida and became shoot, we didn't have it for years
Yeah.
after I came to Florida. But yeah, they actually had that countywide system, and maybe they were better about bringing everybody together at that time. Maybe not so many, I don't know. Eugene, Oregon, there were really 2 big cities, and then it was mostly county. So
Got it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I know a lot of criminals. They're always like, "Oh, you know everything about me. You know my whole thing." And I'm like, "No, that's a relatively new." And I don't even know how accurate that is now, but that's relatively new. Being able to see their criminal history and all that. That wasn't always like that.
No.
right, yeah, no, that's why I was
No.
shocked when I got to Florida and found you can't see that over in Pinellas County, because I was working at Largo at first.
Yeah.
Clearwater did a FIR on this guy the same night that you had him in Largo. I mean, that's really good information because they
Yeah.
border each other, but they didn't have that capacity.
Yeah.
That's too funny. So you decided to go over to USF, and you talked a little bit, touched on the academy, but what does the academy training look like back in 1988?
Yes.
So we were hired, which was the only way I ever could have done it. I would never have been a police officer if I had to put myself through.
Mhm.
Shoot, I couldn't afford to go to college as it was. But it started 3 days a week. We did PT, running, or they did actually. I think this is probably new with my class, but we were doing some aerobics or some kind of a jazzercise kind of stuff. I don't think it was jazzercise, but
We'll just say it is because that makes me laugh.
so we did running at Tampa Police Academy. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's right
Mhm.
next to the incinerator. So yeah, we
Yes.
got that nice morning breeze.
Oh yeah.
And then we'd go into class, shower there and get into class and just, lots of lectures. Some of the things that they covered, domestic violence was a big deal at that time. I think the
Yeah.
law had changed recently to where they required you arrest the primary aggressor. So that was a new thing back when I went through the
Right.
academy. They hadn't really pushed that so hard. But, some of the things we didn't have, there were no tasers. There was no OC. We didn't have any training for that. We did have some baton training, but I didn't have a baton when I started at USF. We did not have batons. So it was before those ASPs, which that is what we ended up with. But they had PR-20,
The big sword sticks.
the sticks with the handle on them.
Yeah.
But USF didn't have any batons when I started. So what else? I don't know.
With
The
your
defensive
academy,
tactics.
was it combined or was it just USF?
It was mostly sheriff's office. So I think there were 20 Hillsborough County deputies. There were a couple of Largo PD. There were Clearwater PD. There was Temple Terrace PD. And this is one that they were DOT at the time, Department of Transportation. Now they're under Florida Highway Patrol as motor carrier compliance.
Okay.
So a diverse group.
Yeah.
And I remember the DOT officers, they actually started with their take-home cars. So they would show up to the academy in their take-home cars. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they thought they were real
That's a perk.
fancy.
Yes. Yes.
Well, do you remember how many females were in your class?
There were a few. So
That's interesting.
probably less than 10, and I think the class was close to 30. I mean, I got
That's
a
all right.
picture. I do have a picture right up there, and I can think of probably 6 or 7. So that's probably about right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you
That's
started
still-
off in records, so you worked with law enforcement, so you kind of had an idea for it. But again, it sounds to me like you were just like, this is what I want to do. This is what I need, meaning like the education part, and they're willing to help me. So, excuse my language, but fuck it. Here we go. We're just going to see what happens.
I need to solve a problem.
Were you
All
going
right.
to school to be a law enforcement officer, or was your major completely different?
No,
were you like
actually,
an
I
education
thought I would
major?
go to USF and get my degree. I was studying business. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I think I was actually focused on accounting at one time, but I finished with a management degree. So, but I thought, I'll get my degree and I will then leave law enforcement and go do something else. But I didn't finish my degree I did get that free education, but I only took one class a semester. So rotating shifts and
Yeah.
working overtime, and
Yeah.
really I gave up a lot of overtime because I was going to class. There
Right.
were opportunities I missed, like Hurricane Andrew. They
Mhm.
sent officers down for Hurricane Andrew, but I couldn't miss my classes, so I
Yeah.
couldn't do that.
Got
We
it.
sent officers up to UF after Danny Rollins. I couldn't do that either because I was in classes. So a lot of missed opportunities just trying to get that education.
Got it.
Actually, I know Danny Rollins. Do you mind just synopsis of Danny Rollins? You threw it out there.
Yeah,
It's a
sorry. It
no, that's
was
fine.
a serial killer at University of Florida.
Yeah,
I don't know what year it was. 92 maybe before that.
it was early '90s. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's when I think he was doing it beforehand, but I don't mean to jump in.
Yeah, no. So yeah, it was terrifying because I'm working
Mhm.
a college campus. Could it be something that happens on our campus? And
Yeah,
we were fortunate that it didn't at that time. We UF had a limited amount of manpower, and with state university system, we could support them by sending officers up to assist. So we were sending up squads of officers to assist them with patrol because they're trying to just get people on the street so that the students feel safer and
yeah.
there's more eyes out there to hopefully catch the guy.
And I'm
Wild.
sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I knew I was trying not to do this, but now you just got something. So, because there's been, there's been a history of serial killers that not just target college campuses, but have. And then even
Mhm.
up until recently, the other individual that I'm not trying to just make this serial killer conversation, but with that being said, with college campuses being such a target, is that something that you saw training or intel kind of grow in your career? And then how would you guys address that?
No, I wouldn't say we did. Really, I think they were kind of taken as a um, one-off kind of thing. I wouldn't think that I don't think it was something that was looked at as a university system problem. But to say that, and this didn't actually happen at USF, but USF had the Tampa Bay area had a serial killer, Bobby Joe Long,
Yep.
who
Mhm.
was very closely associated with USF. He
Yeah.
lived here in Temple Terrace, and
Yep.
actually, story is before my time, but the story is
Mhm.
that we would get off at 11 o'clock. Our officers next door to our police department was a racquetball court, and there were racquetball games played between Bobby Joe Long and some of our officers. And the thing with these serial killers is they usually have that kind of a they're usually you wouldn't you just don't think that they're serial killers.
Just
They
Yeah.
are
normal people.
good looking, personable kind of people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or at least some of them are.
Well, and then Ted Bundy, he did the same thing. I
Yeah.
believe it was FSU, but like
Yes.
just
Yeah.
very kind of what you're describing. Sorry, it just you
Mhm.
said that, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Sorry, Mom.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's go.
No, you're fine. I actually thought the same thing when you talked about the training aspect of it, since we were
Yeah.
Yeah.
talking about academies and things like this. Was there any, which this leads to this question, was there any kind of, because you had a combined academy, once you moved over to USF, did they have any more targeted, like these are the things that we experience that might be different than the average law enforcement agency?
Not outside of just being an FTO and learning it from your FTO. And I think that's changed, and it has changed. It changed while I was there. Actually, probably while I was over training, we kind of started that modular is what the sheriff's office called it, but some
Mhm.
USF classroom prior to putting them out on the street. But no, I went from graduating the academy to being in patrol first week with my first FTO. I kind of laugh about that because every year as the semester starts, I remember that because that was my first week, was that first week of classes. And
Oh,
I don't know if you've been on a college, at least at USF, on the first week of
Mm-hmm.
classes, but it is
yes.
gridlock. It's miserable.
Yes.
There's traffic everywhere.
Couples.
Everybody's lost. And I was lost too. I mean, I'm with an FTO,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'd never really spent any time on USF campus. So
Mhm.
it's a good memory, but
Yeah.
So no holdover necessarily. You went straight from the
no.
academy to in the car with your field training officer.
Right.
How long
Wow.
was the academy at that point in time,
Uh,
roughly?
Gee, I used to know this. I want to say
It's all right. Approximate.
16 weeks, 14 weeks,
Okay.
something
Oh,
like that.
okay. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
not too
Yeah.
much shorter, well,
Yeah.
than it is now. And then with the field training officer, was it still a 4-month cycle, essentially? Or
Uh,
3.5 months, roughly?
yeah, probably not. I want to say more like 3 months.
3
Okay.
months? Okay.
2
right.
FTOs, one for a month, the second for a month, and then final phase for 2 weeks or something.
Okay. So,
Gotcha.
That's what I'm remembering. It may be wrong, but
yeah.
No, that's all right.
Did you feel once you left with the training of the academy and your field training officer, did you feel prepared to be out there doing this job?
well, that's a good question. Hard to say. I did not have experiences, so we don't get dead bodies, murders,
Yeah.
child abuse. We don't get a lot of calls that you guys might get, within your field training period. So I
Mhm.
felt prepared, but I did not have experience in those things. I
Yeah.
want to say, and I can't confirm this, but I was a field training officer with an officer in training, maybe on one of my first dead body calls. So,
Oh, wow.
I'm
Okay.
training him, and I said, oh well, what do we do here? Let's figure this out.
We'll work it out one way or the other.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
So you start out in patrol, Meg. So can you walk me kind of through your career path? I know that you promoted and you ended your career at a very elite level. So walk us through how from the start to the finish, kind of.
Okay. So an officer for really the first 5 years. I did at some point I was asked to become an FTO. I'm not sure I saw myself as an FTO, but someone saw that in me. And again, I think when you talk about mentors later, that's someone who was a mentor for me that saw things and helped me achieve things that probably I wouldn't have tried. So I became an FTO, then after 5 years promoted to corporal, and I spent 5 years as a corporal, but about the last year of that I was an acting sergeant. And USF
Okay.
had we had patrol corporals, but that was the only place we had corporals. And every other position that was 8 to 5 was all sergeants. So every
Got it.
detective was a sergeant, records was a sergeant,
Huh.
and they didn't have any trouble promoting you from officer to sergeant. So I'm an acting sergeant, having spent about 4 years as a corporal in patrol. And there's these other positions that, if you don't get them, nobody leaves because they're sergeants. So they're not coming back
Right.
Yeah.
out on the street.
No.
And I'm trying to get one of these inside positions and I'm not getting it. And one of the things I was told is, well, you're doing a really good job as a supervisor in patrol. And these other positions, we think these people might be better suited for that. And
Mm.
but it really was the experience I had, and I did finally make sergeant. I was patrol sergeant for 5 years. So 15 years, 5 of it as an officer and 10 as a patrol supervisor. And really, I mean, I knew everything everything you could know about being in patrol at USF at that time.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
from
getting punished for
there,
doing a good job.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a good experience either way. And
Yeah.
at the time, of course, I'm frustrated, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's so much learning that it comes from these struggles that you have as you
Yeah.
go through your career.
For
Yeah. I
sure.
think sometimes when we're in it, we don't have the perspective of
Yeah,
seeing the benefit and especially when we're young. And it's like, okay,
right.
I've been doing
Maturity.
this for a long time and I want this, I want this. And sometimes we don't realize the beauty of being settled just for a little bit.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So it was about 2003. I think that was
Mhm.
it was the year I got married. Also the year I got moved into the accreditation position. I became the accreditation sergeant.
Okay.
So I spent 3 years as the accreditation sergeant and got us through one cycle of reaccreditation.
Right.
And when we successfully completed that, I was promoted to lieutenant.
Mm.
But I continued to be the accreditation manager at the time, But I also they eliminated a lieutenant position and they gave the responsibilities to me. So I
Very
was
well.
lieutenant over records and communications, IT, training, IAs. That might be it.
That's a lot. That's enough.
I was gonna
That's
say, at
okay.
least
Yeah,
supervised.
yeah. So I was, a lot.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we got a new chief. So all of our new all of our policies needed to be rewritten for his signature.
Wow.
And I was
So-
it for that.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, I get it that USF is not a huge department, but that seems like an enormous span of control. Were you able to actually be effective, or was it one of those things where you had to really kind of delegate that to your sergeants to handle a lot of things?
Well, that's a good, I did have one sergeant, over, I don't remember if he was records and communications or just records. But at some point he was reassigned, and I ended up without a supervisor over records, and we did have a civilian supervisor over communications.
Mhm.
I think I had a training sergeant, but he was training. I mean, there
Yeah.
wasn't a unit there. It was the training sergeant. It was too much. Accreditation, although this was my biggest challenge in my career was accreditation. And we ran into a problem. Jumping ahead a little bit,
No,
but
it's okay.
That's fine. Yeah,
I
go ahead.
did not have support. And I'll tell you, that's one of the problems with budgets, and it is not very exciting to give money to your accreditation manager for a software system or whatever. I was not well supported, although I think the problems we had with our reaccreditation were not, well, I know I had a problem with the chief. And when I went to our reaccreditation, there was the commission, you sit before the commission, and I was told that we were, it was going to be questionable whether we were going to get reaccredited. We had some issues; they had been corrected,
Right.
but I had a chief who didn't even come into the office while the assessors were there until like 10 in the morning, 10:30.
Eat.
So I don't know if there was a method to if there was something going on trying to get me in. I don't know. I didn't feel as though I was targeted, is what I felt. But
Right.
they told me that the chief had to come to the commission and tell them that it's his agency and his responsibility, and he did not do that. So we
Oh.
did not get reaccredited. And that was, to have been promoted to lieutenant because we successfully got reaccredited 3 years ago. And then
Right.
3 years later, we're not getting reaccredited and put on, a provisional where we have to come back.
Right.
It was a pretty tough time.
Yeah. That
Well,
would
let me
be
ask-
frustrating, I would definitely
Yeah.
say.
How was the chief selected, or because for like cities it's the city council, sheriffs, they're
Oh,
elected.
yeah.
How does it work at USF?
Well, that's there. How we were working at the time for a division. The student affairs division is who we reported to. It's changed throughout my career, and so it was the vice president of student affairs who was selecting the chief. And they
Okay.
had a process. They had actually a committee, and they did have like a criminology professor. Actually, Dr. Bromley, who was retired
Yes.
USF, he was
Dr.
on
Bromley.
there. Yes, he's one of my mentors also. He was on the panel, reviewing the candidates. And so this chief and then one of our internal candidates were the final two choices. And actually, I did the background investigations on both of them for chief. One was my boss and one became my boss.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, he looked good on paper and he did well. What I say is that he was a 3-year guy. And he stayed most places for 3 years.
Mm.
He was at our agency for about 7, and I was a lieutenant for 7 years.
I understand what you're saying.
The
Tracking what you're
previous
saying.
Very well.
chief promoted me to lieutenant, and the new chief promoted me to captain. In between, I had 7 years.
Woof.
So you were 5 years corporal, or 5 years deputy, 5 years corporal, 5 years sergeant, and then 7 years in lieutenant because
Well,
of some of the
no,
hiccups.
no, 3 years, 5 years patrol sergeant, 3 years accreditation sergeant,
Okay.
and then I had so it was 06 to 2014. I was lieutenant, so 7 years. But after that accreditation cycle, I was put in a new role as the patrol lieutenant
Okay.
over all 4 shifts, where we reorganized a little bit. We had had 2 patrol lieutenants, one for days, one for nights. I
Okay.
became the patrol lieutenant over all 4 shifts. Again,
Meg, I'm
s-
sensing a theme here.
sometimes think I'm being set up for failure.
I'm sensing a theme.
But yeah, I did that, and actually I was successful there. So and it was good to be back in patrol, which is something you miss when you're not connected. Accreditation, people don't usually want to go there. It's a great experience.
Yeah.
It's an amazing experience if you want to advance, because it gives you everything you need to know about that agency.
Yeah.
And some of the bad, you know where the
Yeah.
skeletons are now too.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, for sure. Meg, I just want to say this. Like for me, I was never a supervisor, but for me, the hardest thing for me, and maybe you can, commiserate, but I loved being patrol. I loved being on the front line, but I was like, I just want to do. It's like I'm not trying to necessarily promote or whatever, but I just want to try something else. Was the hardest thing, and it was the hardest thing at every agency I worked for. It's like, look, I enjoy this. I get the need. I understand, but it's like I'm not necessarily trying to be a corporal sergeant. I want to maybe be a detective. I want to try a specialty team. I just want to see, because how are you supposed to know unless you've done it for a little while? And I think Hillsborough now has started doing TDYs, but they weren't a big thing when I was there, and they were really hard to get. And pretty much if you got the TDY, you were going to go there, kind of was the concept. Not, hey, I just want to try some stuff out. It wasn't until I got to the Secret Service where they would offer TDY so you could gain exposure. They were only 3 weeks long, but at least you got like an idea, because I'm like, I've never even heard of this. What do they even do before I try to put in for it? So that the concept is I think it eludes most agencies. It's not a thing they like to do. They don't want to let you go from patrol or whatever the reason is. But anyway, I can kind of commiserate that you were like, I'm stuck here.
Well, and you're really that's so true, because at USF we did eventually get to those, but by the time we got to maybe a TDY and detectives, it was for officers, and I was already at least a corporal.
Yeah.
These opportunities were for officers, and I had missed that.
Yeah.
And then when there were other opportunities, like my friend Donna we both went for the bike sergeant when we started a bike unit. We both applied for that position. She got it, and she was the best choice. But that meant that opportunity wasn't there for me, and there was only one sergeant position, and she got it. So there were a lot of that, and like I said, at USF, a lot of these sergeant positions that weren't ever coming open, because once you made sergeant and detectives, because it's a sergeant position, that's where you retired unless you promoted out.
Yeah.
I got to say this about bikes, because I could hear people, and I was one of them. I used to kind of laugh, and I used to shit on them a little bit until you work with them. You're like, oh, there's actually a lot to this, and it's actually really cool. And there's a lot of things you can do that I never even realized you could do with a bike.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of training that goes into it.
Yeah, I watched them at the in 2020 at the protests and stuff downtown. I was watching it at the Real Crime Center, and the ability to use their bikes as barricades and keep them from going up on the interstate. It was amazing. We're in there just cheering them on because they were so effective.
Yeah.
It's one of those things on the outside looking in, you're like, I'm not wearing a bike helmet. That's, just, I don't know, whatever it is. The appeal wasn't there until you see them in action, and they're getting into, because also they can go where cars don't go. I'm sorry. I know I'm talking to you too, but it's just like, there's a lot that can be done. And I feel like you threw that out there, and it just reminded me that I remember my exposure.
It was perfect for a college campus because there are a lot of
Oh,
places that
yeah.
they can get to much quicker than a
Yeah.
car.
For
So,
sure.
yeah.
And that I've heard that's one of the hardest classes that a law enforcement officer, that and motor units, I heard are like
Yeah.
the hardest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, I think motor is probably even harder, but my husband took the bike, and he, I have to say, I probably wouldn't have been that great. I am not. I guess maybe because of my older brothers, but I know that I am not as coordinated and athletic as other people are.
Yeah.
oh,
No, I
that's
understand.
great.
Sorry, I got
So
off topic.
no, you're fine. You're a lieutenant for 7 years. Then where do you transition from there in your career?
So as the new chief started on his first day, he made me a captain. I
Okay.
became the captain over operations. So at the
Okay.
time, it was patrol and CID.
Okay.
And I did that that was in 2014. So I think I probably did it for 2 or 3 years. Went into drop in 2016. And in 2016, 2017, they moved me over administration rather than operations.
Got it.
I was very, very unhappy with that.
Yeah.
I One of my concerns was that we didn't have any women in leadership at on the operations side at the time.
Got it.
We had another female sergeant who was, I think, maybe records at the time, but there was
I
no one
see.
else in leadership in operations. And I thought, you just moved all these women. They don't have someone in that agency now that they can look
Yeah.
to as a mentor. So,
Correct.
Let me ask
Yeah.
you this, because sorry, go ahead.
well, it did make sense since I was retiring that at the end of my career to move me into a different position and get someone else that experience. But I'm sorry.
No, so I'm just, again, I was never a supervisor, but here you are. You've worked for this agency for a very long time. You made captain. It's sounding like you didn't really have a lot of say, or how did that go on where you ended up? Was it just kind of like the chief said, go here, so this is where I'm going? Is that kind of, there was no conversation? It just is what it is?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
There are only two captains.
Yeah.
The other captain was over administration, and then when they switched me, I did talk to the assistant chief about it, and but he wasn't. I don't know if he wanted to change me, or I don't know what his motivation was, but he saw that. He said that I would be successful in administration at that point. But no, there was no discussion, and like I said, only two captain positions, so
Yeah.
there's not many places you can go.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So as you moved through the ranks, Meg, was it always pretty slim with how many women were in positions um, of supervisory roles that were on that side of the house? Was it more so that they were put on the administrative side, or what was your take on it?
No, they were. We had a great history with women in operations. So when I started in '88, there was a female lieutenant over detectives. There was a female sergeant in detectives. And I think there was a female sergeant in records when I started. So that's 1988. The lieutenant that was over detectives, she was pretty much a rising star in the 70s. She was our first ever officer of the year when she got hired, and she made lieutenant in like 77. So
Oh,
pretty
That is very fast. Yeah.
yeah,
progressive for law enforcement in the 70s.
for sure.
We had three other female lieutenants during my career. One was my field training officer. One retired when I became the lieutenant over accreditation and all the other things, I was taking her position. She was a female lieutenant that retired.
I see.
And then there was another lieutenant who we were kind of rose through the ranks fairly closely. But when I left, there were no other lieutenants or above that were women. There was a female sergeant. She was promoted to lieutenant sometime after I left, and she's no longer there. So again, they're back to no women in their upper level leadership, and I don't think they
Got it.
have any in their line supervision either. Maybe
I see.
maybe one. Yeah.
I see.
Hmm.
But overall, USF was typically, it sounds to me like they were pretty progressive with, because in
Yes.
the
Yeah.
70s, having a lieutenant, I know
That's wild. Yeah.
my first supervisor was a female who happened to be a lieutenant, and she showed us a picture when she got hired on wearing a dress on the range. And I was like, wait, what? So she was in a skirt. I'm like,
Yes.
how did, she's like, oh, well, I didn't go out on the street and answer calls. I stayed at the station. And I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's
wild.
the lieutenant that was there in the 70s. She did have a skirt at one time. I have a picture, but she was wearing pants. I have her academy graduation picture in 1975, I think. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love it. So you touched on a little bit about different mentors that you encountered.
Yeah.
And you've talked in the past too about, on our previous episode, about a mentor that kind of helped you along the way. Can you talk a little bit about, like, what did they do? How did they help you in these, in 1988 when things were a little bit different though?
Right. Well, so my first well, I don't think she wasn't my first FTO, but my second FTO, Donna Rogers, was definitely my mentor throughout my career. She is an officer, but quickly after I started became a corporal, and then, again, she went up the ranks to lieutenant, and I followed her. And she was very, very well respected within all the ranks. As a matter of fact, there was a chief who was there for a really long time, like 1975 to 2003, I think.
Whoa.
He was the chief, and he took a lot of he used her, asked her for input on a lot of things. So
Got it.
Okay.
she was very well respected. She was well respected by all the men on the squads, as well as, I look to her as a mentor for me. And she was not she didn't have a college education, but she had life experience, and she was so much common sense. And
Right.
when you're struggling, and her response was, well, you need to talk to them, and you need to go to them, and talk this through. And I'm always looking to avoid confrontation, so that was the kind of, she was somebody I could bounce things off of my whole career, and just gave me great advice throughout my career. So that
Right.
was one. Another one, and it's funny because I know, Mo, you had the experience as a hostage negotiator.
Mhm.
My chief, when I became the accreditation manager, my chief actually again offered me that position and said he thought I'd do well, but he recommended I take hostage negotiation training. I'm the accreditation manager. I'm like, well, what is that? And he says the training is very helpful for anybody. That it's good education for dealing with, other people. Maybe that's because I didn't do that well. I don't know. But
Imagine two of them being married to each other.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So and he's actually the same guy who he was a patrol lieutenant when he asked me to be an FTO, because again, I don't think I saw that in myself, but he said, I think you'd be a good FTO. So I became an FTO. So that was the Chief Pat Johnson. And then my other big mentor, we've already talked about, Dr. Bromley, who he was involved in my hiring in 1988 as the major. He continued on, I don't know when he retired, but he retired from USF Police and became a full professor at USF.
Mhm.
And I finished my bachelor's degree in 2004. So I got married in 2003. I finished my bachelor's degree in 2004. My daughter was born in February of 2005. So I had my plan, and then I had Dr. Bromley, who came to the office and spoke with the chief too, and said, you need to take this new master's program I'm starting. And so I got started in the master's program. The chief said, you can adjust your hours and go to the class. I'm like, really? Okay, thanks.
You're like, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So,
That's
but
why I got my master's too, is because of Dr. Bromley.
oh my goodness, yes,
Yeah. Which
he will
I'm
twist your
so
arm.
thankful for him. Yeah, I was so
Mhm.
thankful. And it was funny because I didn't know him. I only knew him as Professor Bromley. I learned about his career path, but I was like, you're saying professor, but I'm hearing salesman, because the way he made you feel like it was your idea to go get your master's and he was just there to help you facilitate it. I'm like,
Right.
wait, no, you're the one that told me about it.
Oh,
I
you're not
love it.
kidding. And then once you took it, then he's back knocking on your door. Who else can you send? Do you have any more
Yeah.
people to send? And I did twist some arms of some other colleagues to get them to go take that same program.
Well, let me say this about Dr. Bromley. I think he's passed a few
He
years
did.
back.
Yeah.
RIP. He was great. But he actually, so when you take his course, and I mean, I don't know how many hundreds or probably thousands of people took that course, he would follow your career. As I moved and transitioned around, he would say, how's everything going there? I was like, how did you even know about it? Because somebody in my class said, hey, did you know Tyler's doing this, whatever? And he would send emails about encouragement just randomly out of the blue. I was like, what a phenomenal individual. Sorry. I love Dr. Bromley. I'm very appreciative of that man.
No, you're absolutely right. He was a Temple Terrace resident. So we used to see him all the time. We live in Temple Terrace, raising the kids here, we would run into them at restaurants. I was very close to him. And when he passed, it was a big shock to me. I am still very close with his wife. We see her regularly, and no, he was I'm so thankful for that master's program. It got me, that's probably why I became a captain, and it certainly opened so many doors for me, especially since I've retired. But even before I retired,
Yeah.
I said I made captain in 2014. I didn't say that I was applying out at that time because I was dealing with the chief that I wasn't, happy with.
Oh,
And
right.
I had actually I was a finalist for a position here in Hillsborough County, the PTC. I can't think of what it stands for.
Oh, yeah.
And
Public
I went, yes, Public Transportation Commission. And apparently the background for that got through to the assistant chief before I got to him to tell him that, oh, by the way, I guess I'm a finalist.
Yeah.
And he called me into his office, and I said, well, actually, I think that was when he became very, very tight timetable here when he became chief. And I said, well, I'm going to keep going for this job. I said, I don't know if I'll take it, but thanks for the captain, and I'll take that, and I'll let you know what happens with the other.
Good for you.
Oh,
But
that's
as it
awesome.
happens, the best thing that happened was I became captain, and I didn't get the PTC job because that didn't go so well either.
No, it did
And it
not
doesn't
go.
exist anymore.
No, it does not.
Some
Sorry,
people
that's
who
inside
did
stuff.
go there got some bumps in the road. So
Yes, they did. That's inside
So,
baseball.
I just, my whole career, I think I was right where God intended me to be at every turn. I just, sometimes I don't know what he was thinking, but
he was like, no, I know you don't want to stay here, but just a little longer so we can move you
Yes.
here.
Give us some time.
You do learn from those challenges, that's for sure.
For
No,
sure.
for sure.
So tell me, what are some things that you considered highlights or successes in your career? Because like I said, well, let me back up. When you retired, what was the rank when you retired? Because I don't think we touched on that.
Assistant chief.
Assistant chief. So
Yes.
what did you consider over that that's unheard of, especially sometimes people think, oh, if you're not at a huge agency, the opportunities to move up and do different things are very limited. And your career demonstrates that that's not always the case. It's a matter of someone who does a really good job, and other people see things in her that she may not have even seen in herself and help her career along. What would you consider highlights and successes that you had, some highlights and successes that you had throughout your career?
So making captain as a female was really one of the biggest because I am the only female that they've had at the rank of captain at our agency. So that was pretty amazing. And to get the recognition of that from my mentor who she was a lieutenant, and she told me, I didn't even realize it, but she says, you are the first, and I'm so proud of you. So that was really quite
Yeah,
an
that hit you.
accomplishment for me. Earning my degrees, 16 years to get that master's degree.
I wasn't
So,
gonna say nothing.
you know,
You
You
got
man,
it
rode the
though.
long
I have a
path.
I have a plaque here that I actually got from my first accreditation, and it says perseverance. And so I think that's one of my
Yeah.
traits. I think I have
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Earning my master's degree also, because that was really, I have an infant. There were Saturdays when I didn't know what I was going to do with her,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
got that worked out. I also won the Criminology Wall of Fame, and I think I can thank Professor Brownlee for that. That's USF's Criminology Department's Wall of Fame. They
Oh.
awarded that to me in 2016, which again is another that opened the door, I'm sure, to some opportunities that,
Yeah.
to have that in my. One of the things that I'm proud of is that patrol lieutenant, when I took over, I had the opportunity to mentor those sergeants. So I had 4 sergeants reporting to me, 4 sergeants, 4 corporals, 4 patrol squads. And I felt like I was very successful there. One of the things that I was tasked with was to create our law enforcement challenge. So the IACP Law Enforcement Challenge is an annual thing. So I was tasked with creating it. It had been done by a captain who retired in 2009, and I don't know if we did it in 2010, but I was asked to get this done. And it was quite a task at the time. It's I have it here. It's
Yes.
a book.
A big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to cover, several different topics. And so obviously I can't do this on my own.
Yeah.
I
Right.
brought together my patrol sergeants. I said, this is our job. We need to break it up, and each one of you is going to be responsible for a section. I want you to get me, the information and put it together. And we won. We won first place in the IACP
Nice.
Law Enforcement Challenge. And I think in another year we came in third. So really, again, I did like being a patrol sergeant, but that ability to these sergeants that really I got to see them grow in their roles and then go on and advance in their careers, and it was really rewarding for me to do that. So that was a pretty good part of my career.
Do you remember how you celebrated the win with your sergeants? Did you do
Yeah.
anything fun?
I don't know that I did.
It's okay.
I don't really remember. No, we all have 4 different shifts, so I don't know.
Yeah.
That's true. You were
That's
covering
good.
all of the supervisors at that point. So.
Yeah.
Every time she got promoted, she was 3 jobs.
No.
I guess
No,
I
don't-
should have. And I'm thinking back now. There you go. Actually, I could have been a better leader if I'd have done that.
Oh no, that's
Yeah, no.
no, that wasn't the intent. I was like,
No,
no,
but-
not so.
well, let me ask you this: through your career as you were supervisor, did you have any leadership courses or training, or was it just mentor based, or anything you did on your own?
Well, getting the master's degree certainly gave me some leadership opportunities.
For sure.
There was probably, what is it, line supervision that you could take it through salary incentive course. I'm sure I took that, but I can't say that I had a lot of leadership.
External training, so to
No,
speak.
yeah, and that was one thing I would have liked to have had. I actually requested it at one point in my career, was to go to, my husband went to SPI, Southern Police Institute.
Yeah.
I asked for the moon. I asked to go to the PERF, the one at Harvard.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah,
Fancy.
I asked, I spent 7 years kind of in limbo, so I didn't ask until later, and I happened to be in drop, and that wasn't an option. They
Wow,
did.
I see.
He did at one point offer to send me to one of the Florida leadership through FTLE. But again, it didn't work out. The timing, I already had a scheduled vacation during the same time frames. Maybe that was why
Those
we
are
did
important
that.
too. Those are
Yes, they
important
are.
too.
But the SPI, the FBI National Academy PERF, I really kind of wished I had that opportunity. But I do think the master's program provided me with something very similar.
Yeah.
No, it was
So
excellent.
with it sounds to me like you said, between you educating yourself on the master's program and then just kind of on the job was that how all supervisory promotions would occur? They just kind of had to have that on the job training and learn their new positions?
Some people actually got to go to some of these schools. Um,
Got it.
the FDLE ones there was a time, and it was really before I was command staff, but there was a time
Hmm.
at the agency when we sent people to, is it senior leadership, I think, through
Hmm.
FDLE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was never offered to me, but again, I think my timing on with the changes in leadership changed our. We didn't send people to that so much.
Yeah.
So, and then later in my career, they did send a couple of lieutenants to SPI and to the National Academy, but again,
I see.
I didn't get to do that. So,
Got it.
Meg,
So,
let me ask you. Sorry, looking back,
okay.
because what you're saying is very typical from the agencies I've either worked for or worked with. It's usually like, you have to hit that upper level lieutenant or above to go to these training courses. And I feel the opposite. Once you hit corporal sergeant, like you're on that supervisory path, what is the pushback or the roadblock to saying, hey, these people have shown a desire to be leaders? Because again, like you said, it's timing. There's a lot that kind of goes into it, budget, all this other stuff. Start pushing them through in advance. I mean, oh no, I have a corporal or sergeant who's gone to one of these leadership courses that usually was only reserved. Well, they're going to hopefully be lieutenant one day, right? Like you're
right.
trying to groom
Yeah.
that path as
Yeah.
opposed to being this like elite, oh, you have to make it first and then we'll send you. I've never
Right.
understood that.
No, and you're right. We did move to getting our supervisors to that FBI LEDA training. So there's a 3-course program there. I think I only attended one of those, but
Hmm.
yeah, we started to see that there was value in getting them to those leadership courses, and before but again, over time, so much changes
Yeah.
and yeah, I ended up at a pretty high level, but
Yeah, but you did that through grit and perseverance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
a lot
So happy you did, but it's like it could have been maybe a little easier for you.
a
Yeah.
lot of times it's the chief executive that really makes those decisions too.
Yeah.
You can bring forward these ideas, but the chief executive is making the final decision. I feel as though there were 7 years where we kind
Just
of
gotta
weren't
hit
getting
pause.
some of those things.
Yeah. And
So we were talking about highlights of your career, and usually that kind of accompanies what was your most rewarding supervisory assignments. Those sometimes can go
Right.
together. So did you
Yeah.
have one assignment that you just liked just a little bit more than the others?
Well, I always say that my time as a patrol sergeant was probably my favorite, but when I just recounted what I liked about being a patrol lieutenant, I think that was probably my favorite assignment, to be connected to patrol, but maybe have that opportunity to really mentor the future. They are the future. That is, the people that I mentored are now rising to those levels at USF.
Yeah.
at what point did you realize like, oh, this is my career?
Well, it really happened when I got my degree, and I'm a
Okay.
sergeant, and I'm in accreditation, and yeah, what am I going to do? I'm going to leave now. 16 years. It's
So
only
16
25
years
to
in.
retirement. Yeah. And life changed too. At that point, I married, and at that point, shortly thereafter, we added to our family, and yeah, it just seemed like the right thing to do to stay in law enforcement.
Fair enough. Fair
That's
enough.
a great
Yeah.
question. She was like, I'm just getting my degree and I'm out.
Yep. 16 years later. All right. Well, I guess
Yeah.
this is what I'm doing now.
That's
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
yeah. Somewhere along the line, I found a career instead of just, a method to get my degree. Yeah.
I love
So
it.
I think you touched already kind of on some of the challenges and low points that you had. Did that accompany that being the most difficult supervisory assignment that you had was also in that phase of being the accreditation lieutenant?
Yes, that was definitely the hardest
Yeah.
time. Oh, you know what I didn't say? I don't think I said I was the PIO at the time too. So,
Oh yeah, you left that one
Why
out.
not?
You left that
yeah.
Why
that
not?
whole
You were doing
department out.
everything else.
So, yeah, accreditation, and I enjoyed accreditation for the first reaccred. And then
Yeah.
the second one, it just, again, it's whether or not you have that support. And
Yeah.
I asked for help. I made sure I documented that too, and
Yeah.
it just didn't come. And that was a very challenging, even to the point of I was disciplined and put under IA. Actually, I was disciplined, and I grieved it, and the investigation into my grievance resulted in me going under IA for a full 6 months.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
maybe missing the opportunity to be a captain at that point because I was under IA when they promoted to that captain position. So that was really a dark point in my career. Again, that's when I
Yeah.
started trying to figure out if there were other positions I could take that would.
Yeah.
PTC was one of those options.
Yeah.
But again, the growth that occurred through that, it was pretty dark, but I really learned a lot.
Yeah.
That's
And I
that's
would
some senior cop stuff. CYA, and
Yes.
you haven't been a cop long enough till you've been through your first IA for no reason.
Right.
Well, and I will say though that also has a great deal, like your career already was like it was a demonstration of perseverance, like you said. But
Yeah.
I think even going through that 7-year dark periods, I think most people can handle a year, maybe 2. 7 years is a long time to be in kind of like that dark period. So that sign in your office, perseverance, seems to kind of overlay in your career in a lot of spaces.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes.
So while you were there, obviously, I think when we were talking the first time with Meg, we realized that USF college campuses, it's like managing a small city. And everything happens on those campuses. Things that, some people are like, I don't want to be a college cop because you're just going to be breaking up parties. But there's much, much more that kind of goes along with that. Do you remember any pivotal cases that stood out to you, shaped your perspective on law enforcement and what it was that you were doing?
Well, it's funny when I sat down with your outline today and I tried to come up with some of these, and I'm like, I have forgotten most of what I've done.
Yep, we
But
all have.
there's one, of course, the accreditation was kind of shaped my career. But there's one case that wasn't ours. You may remember, both of you might remember it, but I think it was maybe like 2012,
Mhm.
2013, and it was a rapist in just north of campus. So 46th Street, the apartment complex is one in Tampa and then a couple in HCSO jurisdiction where
Yep.
he wreaked havoc on those college students.
Yes.
Mhm.
I was the operations captain. No, I'm sorry. I was a patrol lieutenant. Yeah. I was a
Hmm.
patrol lieutenant. My patrol sergeant called me up in the middle of the night and said, I'm getting these calls from, I don't know if it was Tampa or Hillsborough, about what's going on up there. And they want to know if we can send out an alert to our students to tell them to lock their doors because of this threat. Now, it wasn't required at that point because it wasn't happening on campus. But after he told me that, I said, yes, let's do that. And we put out the alerts. And then from that point on, I was up all night. We're, trying to keep the students notified without, it's not our case. So we're trying to make sure
Yeah.
the information we're sharing is in line with what these other agencies would want us to share, but also
Right.
trying to support them by getting our students to secure.
Right.
So that was that case. I made a mistake at the end of it after, so many hours where at some point we're no longer seeing any activity. I was trying to get a message out that it's maybe not all clear, but something, the threat doesn't seem to be as dire at the moment or something.
Yeah.
And I made the decision to put out a message that was the university wasn't happy with, but it's on me. I made that decision based on what I was trying to accomplish. And I spent the next morning at the president's conference room with the president and other vice presidents and CEOs, telling them why I made that decision. That's a lieutenant, by the way.
Yeah.
That's my first experience in that room.
Yeah.
Right.
but it was getting a perspective on what they're trying to do. And again, that's where I've always said, if you're going to be a leader in a law enforcement agency at a university,
Yeah.
you need an education. You can't be sitting in that room without a bachelor's degree. A master's degree is probably helpful,
Right.
but yeah, no education, and you're sitting there with PhDs justifying what decisions you made.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Well,
remember that.
Yeah,
there's something to be said, though, about owning it and saying, that's on me. This was my
right.
rationale behind it. I think
Yeah.
sometimes some leadership positions will quickly try to backtrack and, well, I did it because I was told this, and kind of deflect. And so I think there's something to be able to say right off the bat that, like, I made a mistake. This is what I did. This is why I did it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because we're humans and we're
Right.
imperfect.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Meg, quick synopsis of that, because I was one of the deputies that worked that night, and I was sent to the hospital for 3 victims, and
Gosh.
as I'm there, my phone is ringing. I'm like, bro, this is like a sexual assault. Why are you calling me? But there was 3 more in another room, and then there was reports coming from Tampa, and then they were still getting calls that the same potential. They figured out who it took a minute, but they figured out it's the same person who had just shot at a party, and it was like wreaking, like you said, wreaking havoc. And I'm like, what the? And so all of a sudden, the whole area got flooded with Hillsborough detectives, Tampa PD, like everyone within a 50-mile radius flooded into that zone. And he ended up hunkering down at an ex-girlfriend's house or something, and that's
Yes.
where we lost him. Then in the
Mm-hmm.
morning, the only reason we got him is he stole her orange Dodge Charger, I think it was. And that's the one where they got in a high-speed chase and a shootout on 301. It ended in the Waffle House mode. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And that one major who will be unnamed, all the shooting was done. He shows up after the fact, and you just hear, pow! Oh, there we go, boys. And because he wanted to be on admin leave. Anyway, sorry, it's not funny.
Well, there's that.
Yeah. So anyway, needless to say, sorry. I
And
want to be cognizant of time, Mo. Go ahead.
well, I just want to say, I think that addition really adds another layer. When you have all those working parts,
Yeah.
the decision-making process is quick, it's fluid, it is like, and you're trying to incorporate and assimilate all this stuff going on. So it's really easy as a PhD to sit at a table in a conference room and Monday morning
just kind of
quarterback
reading it. Yeah.
and say, why did you? But again, I say there's something to be said about, this is the decision I made based on the information I had at the time. Simple as
Yeah.
that. So
For sure.
being cognizant of time, I would like to touch on before we let you go, obviously your career spanned a long time. What were the changes that you saw in law enforcement over time that were positive? And what were some things that you thought, well, this is something that wasn't necessarily something we should have changed?
Ooh.
So I'll start with the academy. And, like I said, I never would have gone if I hadn't been employed as a recruit. And we went away from that for a while. It seems as though we're going back to being employed as a recruit by the agencies. And I think that's a good thing. I think the idea of paying to go to the academy, putting yourself through, we're getting recruits that haven't, may not ever get a job. They're getting a false sense of hope, and they're never going to get hired in some cases. So, but it also, they have so much into it that they're going to go to this job. And then we did the contracts. I don't know if every agency had a contract. We had one for a while, and there's 2 sides to that.
Right.
I understand that we were a revolving door for a while, and we wanted to try to find a way to keep them. But when you have someone who doesn't want to stay, but has a contract hanging over their head, and so now are they only doing half the job or are they pushing it to make you fire them to get out from under that contract? They can't just quit because it's not a good fit. Well, we don't need people in the profession that aren't fit for this position. It needs to be that this is where their heart is, where they should stay. Between the academy and that contract, and I think there are some agencies that just have to recognize that they are training grounds for other agencies, a small agency like USF cannot give everybody everything they want. They do have K-9, but they don't have a bomb team. If that's what you want, you're never going to get it at USF.
Yeah.
Right.
But I do think that we can say that we have been the training ground for some very, very successful members of other surrounding law enforcement agencies. I've got
Absolutely.
a guy that worked for us that's a major at Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. I followed his career. He's doing great, and he was a great officer for us, and he put in his time and moved on.
Yeah.
Right.
Many at the sheriff's office that started at USF PD as well. So that's one thing. I guess I gave you good and bad there.
No,
That's good.
I
Yeah.
like it. I think that's such a
Yeah.
perspective because I'm sure that the uppers a lot of times will look at, well, we don't want to be the training ground agency, but I think there's something to be said when you give it that perspective.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's tough to keep hiring, but you just, again, you can't be everything for all these officers. Some of these young officers are going to come in really wanting to have some experiences and you can try, but when you start getting them onto task forces and things like that, well,
Yeah.
that's great, except there's a danger there that they go to those other agencies. So
Yeah. For sure.
exposure leads to, and great officers will get recruited by these other
Yeah.
agencies. So
Yeah.
yeah, I double-edged sword there, but I do think that the academy being being hired to go is probably a good change for law enforcement.
Excellent.
What
For sure.
else? I don't know.
Well, hold on. I got a question though. If you are, I'm switching gears because I am just interested in this aspect. Life after, so your active service. What does that feel like? Because I've heard mixed bag. For the first few months it was great, or I was gonna pull my hair out. I was going crazy. I was driving my spouse crazy. But what was it like for you? What was your experience?
So I thought it was wonderful for the first 6 months. Yes. But then we had a lot of plans and things. I retired March 31st. So retirement party, celebration, all that. Family came to town. We had a nice summer vacation planned. I think she was 16. My daughter was 16 at the time. So I was doing the driving to and from school at that point, and finished that year doing that. And then in August, she went back to school, but she's driving, and Andy's busy working, and I'm like, wow, what now? And I did things around the house. I cleaned out some closets and did some organization. I'm like, this is terrible. I'm like, I need something to do. I started volunteering, and I was volunteering at a food pantry, and I just felt like I was not using my brain for anything.
Yeah.
And I just no sense of purpose. So it's really, that part is really difficult to go from non-call or whatever 20
Yeah.
to turn in your phone, and then not only does no one wake you up in the middle of the night, but no one ever calls you.
Yeah.
So you need to have that sense of purpose. Even though I thought I knew, I thought I planned, and I was ready, I didn't have. And I put in place a volunteer role. I serve on a credit union supervisory committee. So there's some bi-monthly requirements there. So I do have some kind of a professional connection, but that wasn't enough. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 5 days a week looking for something to do, not every other month.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely found that the plan was that my husband and I would be able to do things together, and he wasn't able to join me, so I didn't have a plan anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I
don't have a good answer, but it's just, I've talked to a few people who have retired and moved on to other careers, and that gap period where they're trying to figure out what they want to do next. You have all this wealth of knowledge, experience, training, leadership, right? And then it's just like, hey, appreciate it. And then the next day someone else is in your spot and that's the wrap. It just seems like such a disservice to just let that just go by the wayside. It's almost like what you're talking about, having an agency just be a training ground for other cops. But here you are with somebody who has all this knowledge, and it's like, hey, appreciate all your time and your service. Here's a great party. Bye. I don't know. I don't have a solution for it. It just doesn't. It
No.
doesn't feel right. Like I feel like we're missing a piece there. But yeah, no, it's just
I
interesting
will
to.
say, getting on my soapbox a little bit, I think
Yeah.
needs to be a better preparation for officers because
Oh yeah.
this leads down to the Hope Line that we are part of. That there's little preparation for those officers that literally go from having these demands and needs that are on them every single day to absolutely nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
like the drop off is like jumping into the abyss for these officers, and a lot of them don't handle it very well because they don't have plans.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a mental health thing to where they don't have any value in their minds. So definitely one of those things that I think that where there's not a solution for, yes, you have to retire one day, but there needs to be a preparation period that I think takes a little bit more time and explanation and coaching that's not happening right now.
And you're 100% correct. And I think some agencies may have something. I know after I retired, I was spending some time with a friend of mine that retired from Tampa Police, and she talked about how they had met with an attorney who came to their office who helped them write wills and that kind of stuff. I don't know. I think TPD may offer something like that. USF had nothing. There was
Yeah.
nothing. I got my badge from the chief on my way out the door. He was on the phone when I grabbed it from him.
Come
You know,
on.
I'm like, Chief, I have to go now.
Yeah. I'm out.
But there was no preparation, and that is very important. And then there needs to be also some kind of I know the sheriff's office has it, a retiree group. I think it's important to try to find a way to keep your retirees connected in some way.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I've kind of run that. I actually started something before I retired with USF Police and
Mhm.
continue it with a Facebook group that I created,
Yeah.
but just for retirees. But yeah, there needs to be some way that they can stay in touch and be notified when something terrible happens to colleagues that they worked with over the years, but also
Yeah.
to support each other and to
Yeah.
be able to. And small pockets do it,
Yeah.
but I think the agency could do better at providing that kind of some connection there. I think Plant
Yeah.
City does an annual firearm requalification for
Mhm.
family. So retired Plant City can come out there and do annual
Yeah.
firearms requals. That's a good way to bring them all
It's a
back and
great way.
make them feel. And you'll still
Part of
miss
it.
people. Some people won't want anything to do with coming back to their
Of
agency,
course.
but there are people that maybe have been missing that kind of connection.
For
Yeah.
sure.
But yeah, definitely resilience training and preparing them for what they're going to go through. And that loss of a sense of purpose is a big deal.
Yeah.
No, for
It's
sure.
huge. So just real quick, and I know this episode was about Meg Ross, but I know that you are doing big things with the Hope Line. Do you have anything you want to plug, how to reach it, anything like that?
Absolutely. The Hope Line, 24/7 confidential support line for first responders and their families. You will talk, if you accept care coordination, you will talk with a peer that's a former first responder who has that same lived experience as you have. They will help you navigate the different resources that you're looking for, whether it's financial assistance or it's a clinician for your son or daughter who's struggling with something. And what I found in 2020 was that your children are affected by your career.
Mm-hmm.
As they see you go out to work a protest and stand on a line, and they're going to school and seeing their friends in school are talking about cops and how, their perception of cops. Your kids might need that kind of support. So there are clinicians that have a little bit of cultural competence that can be identified for you or your children. It's 24/7 statewide, and you can reach it through a phone number, which is 1-866-4FL-HERO, or at the website firstresponderhope.com. And there's a method there to send an email, and someone from the Hope Line will contact you.
Excellent.
Meg Ross,
Well,
thank you so much.
I know we didn't get on to everything we wanted to talk about today, but you're just have such a wealth of information and you're easy to talk to. So thank
Yeah.
you. And we appreciate you.
I truly enjoyed it again, and I really thank you so much for giving me the opportunity and to share the Hope Line. Gee, what a great way to remember my career is with
love
people
it.
talking about how great it was.
No, I love it. We need it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
Awesome.
thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.